you want to open a yoga studio or a fitness studio, and I am here to help you. My name is Albina Rippey and I'm your success coach. And today we'll talk about the perfect location for your yoga studio or for your fitness gym. Location is everything, and it is also important to know all the background, all the information that is involved with a commercial lease space negotiations and build out and all of those things that you may not necessarily think about when you have an idea of opening a yoga studio. Now, location is everything, and ideally you want to have a location that is very visible. Maybe it's on a very busy street or there is a lot of foot traffic. Ideally that location has a lot of parking, especially if you're in a city where everybody drives, right? And lastly, I think it's really important for you to feel that it is the right location. And to me, that is the most important part. This is why I shared with you my vision meditation that I do every time I start working on a big project. And I remember I've opened 7 yoga studios, and in the end of the day, even though I ran 12 businesses, I always trusted my gut feeling and my intuition when it came to picking a correct location for my yoga studios. So unless you own the building, most likely you will need to sign a commercial lease contract. Now, commercial lease is different than any other lease, right? Usually it's between 5-year lease to 10-year lease. You usually get 90-day build out period, meaning your landlord will give you 90 days to do all the work to get the space ready for you to open, and the landlord will usually give you a build out allowance, a certain amount of money per square foot to help you build out the space. Now, all of these are negotiable, meaning when you sit down with your landlord, all of these things can be negotiated, and your personal guarantee can also be negotiated. What is a personal guarantee? That means that you take personal responsibility for the amount of money that is due for the commercial lease space. So usually if you have a 5-year lease, it's whatever your monthly rent is times 12 months in a year times 5, and that's your total personal guarantee. It's a little bit scary, and all of that can be negotiated. And if it was easy, then everybody would open a yoga studio. Do you know what I mean? In Russian we say, if you don't take the risks, you never get to drink the champagne. So we'll talk about commercial lease negotiations in depth during my So You Want to Open a Yoga Studio course. And my husband, who is a lawyer, and remember we opened 7 yoga studios, so we have done this ain't our first rodeo. So we'll share with you all the tools and all the things that you can use when you're negotiating your commercial lease space. We'll talk about it in the course. And today what I want to talk to you about is the basics, right? So there are 3 types of spaces that you can rent. First is called a shell space, or another way of calling it, some people call it a dark, cold space. And usually it's a space in a brand new building, right? Maybe the landlord is building a brand new shopping center that has just brand new. They're opening, maybe they're still building it. What that means is it's just a shell space, and you will have to bring the utilities to the space. You'll need to bring water, electricity, plumbing, gas, all of that. And that costs money, and it takes time, and it takes a very special permitting process to do that. Now, this is the most expensive way of starting a yoga studio. Just know that. There is a second generation space, meaning that maybe there was a restaurant in that space before, or maybe it was a shop or something else. So a second generation space means that it already has all the communications brought up to it. It already has the electricity, it already has the water, the plumbing, the heating, all of that. So it's cheaper. It's cheaper to renovate and build out your second generation space. Now, there is also a third option, And that's when you take over an existing yoga studio or an existing gym or an existing dance studio. Now, we've done all of these three options in the past. The third option, when you take over a yoga studio, is the cheapest and the fastest option. Now, obviously, there are pros and cons to every single option. And the last one, you know, like we took over a yoga studio that shut down a few months before, and we did all of our renovations and got all of our permitting done with very small financial investment, literally in the span of 3 weeks. That was amazing. We have had projects that took almost a year for us to open the doors, and remember, you get only 90-day build out period, so that means after that 90-day period you have to pay rent, and it's usually very, very expensive, especially if you're not generating any revenues. So we'll talk more about that in the course. So you want to open a yoga studio. What I want to tell you today is some practical tools, something that you can start doing today. You can line up your contractors, right? Even though you don't have the commercial lease signed yet, you can line up your contractors, meaning you can get bids now. And I recommend that you get build out bids from a minimum of 3 contractors and ideally 5 to 6 bids, because you want to shop around a little bit. You want to have your architect lined up and ready to go with all the drawings, and get somebody who's ready to get the permitting process going. Now, the architects are really expensive. There are other people that you can hire that don't have a architect license, but literally can do pretty much everything that an architect can, especially if you're opening something as simple as a yoga studio. All you need is just a room, you know, with electricity and gas lines connected to it, and that's it. And usually if you go down that path, it's much, much cheaper than hiring an architect who costs a lot of money. Now, like I said, there are pros and cons to all the options that I'm talking about, and we'll talk more in depth about that during the course. What else? You can do all the research now before you sign your commercial lease on what your city's planning department permit process is. So like I said, usually it requires time. In the past, you know, all my yoga studios were in the city of Houston. I would go to the planning department myself, to the city of Houston, and I'd get to know those guys. And when I have that personal connection, it's more likely that they will prioritize my projects ahead of everybody else. Just little tricks, you know, tricks of the trade, I'm telling you. So it's an exciting process, and all of these things are very important for you to know and be prepared for that, so that you can save money and you can save time. A lot of these things can be done prior to the day and the moment you sign the lease. This is important because the moment you sign the lease, the clock starts ticking. And remember, you usually have only 90 days to build out the space and the permitting and all the bids and you know, bringing all the utilities. It requires a lot of time. And time is money, especially when there is only 90-day build out time. Also, what I can tell you that even when you sign the lease, and even if you don't have the permits, the build out permits just yet, there are a lot of things that you can still do. That you can do a demolition. You know, if it's a second generation space, you can knock down some walls, you can build out some frames before you even get all of your permits. Again, we'll talk more about it in this course that I'm starting very soon. It's called So You Want to Open a Yoga Studio. I'm attaching a link to this video so you can read more about the course. I'm gonna tell you in this course how to open a yoga studio or your fitness studio, how to make it successful. I have opened 7 yoga studios, and I had a hugely successful and thriving business, fitness brand. We'll talk about negotiating your commercial lease. We'll talk about the legal matters. We'll talk about setting up your accounting. We'll talk about marketing and building community and your pricing strategy and hiring the right people and training the right people and customer service, all of those things. So read more about so you want to open a yoga studio, the link is below. And if you have any questions, just DM me and I'm happy to answer any of your questions. Now, good luck, you guys. Get in the state of positive anticipation. Celebrate the fact that you are following your passion, you're chasing your dreams, and you're doing this incredible work of spreading the light in this world and helping people live a happy, healthy, and inspired life. So this is really, really amazing, guys. My deepest belief is that when you follow your heart and you're doing the best work that you can, the universe will always smile at you, and you cannot not be hugely successful. So reach out with any questions, and I'll see you soon.